Hello and welcome everyone. Today's video features the latest addition to the Kriegsmarine in World of Warships, the Tier VIII German battleship Brandenburg. The Brandenburg will be available in the armory for a minimum price of 12,800 doubloons and for various price bundles in the premium store. The Brandenburg is described in-game as based on a battleship design that was close to the Bismarck class, but carried a different main battery that consisted of 12 305mm guns that were developed in Germany in the late 1930s. Even though it's described as close to the Bismarck class, I would make a more direct comparison with the Odin, one of the previous dockyard reward ships. And to be honest, as much as I've enjoyed playing the Odin, and still do for that matter, I do consider the Brandenburg to be a straight up upgrade on the Odin. I'll explain why I think this in more detail as we go through the Brandenburg's complete stats, so let me start as usual by putting up the exact build I'm using in this gameplay, which is a full secondary build, also incorporating IFHE for increased penetration, and I'm using the Gunther Lütjen's bonus commander. The Brandenburg does provide quite a bit of flexibility here in terms of commander builds, and you are not limited to building just for secondaries, but for the sheer fun factor, I've gone with this secondary build. I've been playing a lot of secondary build battleships recently, with the release of the new German tech tree line into early access, so the Brandenburg fitted in really nicely with a similar playstyle. So let's start with the survivability. Brandenburg gets 58,800 hit points, which is more than a 10% increase on the Odin, which is further boosted by having 5 repair parties when training emergency repair expert. The torpedo protection damage reduction is similar at 23%, but unlike the Odin, Brandenburg does not get hydroacoustic search. It's when we look at the armor layout of the Brandenburg is where we see the most significant improvement in survivability. Just using a simple port screenshot, we can see here Brandenburg gets 32mm of plating on both upper fore and aft end deck sections, a fore end armor belt of 60mm, and aft end lower plating of 80mm. The main deck armor is in 3 sections. Both areas under the turrets are 50mm, joined by a reinforced section of 80mm deck plating in the middle. The upper casemate armor is a very capable 145mm, while the main belt armor is a solid 350mm, both of which are significantly stronger than the Odin. The superstructure gets the standard 19mm of plating, while the main battery gun turrets get a frontal plating of 360mm, multiple slope sections of top plating of 150 and 130mm, while the side and the rear plating share the same 220mm of protection. The Brandenburg, being a more traditional German battleship, also gets sloped internal or turtleback armor. Simply summed up, better armor protection and more hit points than the Odin makes it a strong package. The main reason I'm comparing the Brandenburg with the Odin, and not so much with the Bismarck or Tirpitz, is the fact they share the same main battery gun caliber of 305mm. Brandenburg gets 12 305mm guns in 4 triple mounted turrets, equally divided with 2 fore and 2 aft. These turrets have a 180-degree turning time of 30 seconds. They have a reload time of 26.5 seconds and a base firing range of 18.5 kilometers, with a max dispersion of 245 meters at this range. Now you can increase this by mounting the spotter aircraft instead of the fighter consumable, but I don't recommend a sniping playstyle with the Brandenburg. These 305mm guns have a sigma of 1.8 and can fire both high explosive and armor piercing rounds. The high explosive shells can inflict a max damage of 3600, and with this IFHE build they can pen 95mm of armor, and fully flagged still have a 16.5% chance of setting the target on fire. The armor piercing shells can inflict a max damage of 9400, and both shell types have the exact same shell speed of 865 meters per second. So when you are forced to swap out ammo type, no adjustments are required when leading your target. Brandenburg gets a large number of secondary guns in two calibers. First we have 20 105mm guns in 10 dual mounted turrets with a fast 2.9 second reload, firing high explosive shells with a max damage of 1200 and a max firing range of 11.5 kilometers. The base penetration on these 105s is increased from 27mm to 32mm using IFHE, and have a 4.5 chance of setting the target on fire, with quite a fast shell speed of 900 meters per second. Second, we have 12 150mm guns in 6 twin mounted turrets. Also firing HE rounds, these 150mm guns have a 6.4 second reload time with a max damage of 1700, with 47mm of armor penetration. They have a 6% fire chance and a max firing range of the same 11.5 kilometers, with a slightly slower shell speed of 875 meters per second. My only issue with these secondaries is they are less accurate than the current tech tree in early access, and with that line being so good, it really does feel like these secondary battery gunnery officers were recruited immediately after having a rip-roaring old time at Oktoberfest. That being said, the large number of fast-firing main battery guns combined with a substantial amount of effective secondaries make Brandenburg a real threat as it closes the distance. And for those of you out there that love their brawling battleships, well, the Brandenburg has a lot of tools at its disposal. The closer Brandenburg gets to its target, the threat level gets dialed up even further by having access to torpedoes. Brandenburg gets 2 X4 torpedo launchers, one on each side, with a reload time of 90 seconds. Now these torpedoes are your standard German torpedoes with a max damage of 13,700, with a torp speed of 64 knots and a max firing range of 6 kilometers, and they can be detected at 1.3 kilometers. There is one downside here, however, with this build using Demolition Expert as your Tier 1 skill, as these torpedo tubes do feel a little vulnerable at times, not only to getting disabled, but also permanently destroyed. So preventive maintenance suddenly becomes a very valid alternative to Demolition Expert. It can be a little frustrating at times, to say the least, when bearing down on a target at point blank range, only to have your torp launchers destroyed at the last moment. Since the launch of update 0.10.9, submarines are now also in random battles, and to help combat them, Brandenburg gets access to the depth charge airstrike. You get 2 available flights with 2 aircraft per attacking flight, each dropping 6 depth charges per attack, so 12 in total. They have a max bomb damage of 3700 and a max firing range from your ship of 10 kilometers, with a reload time of 60 seconds. The aiming mechanic is the exact same as the Dutch cruisers: aim, lead and click, and I do advise dropping them every time a sub is detected in range, as they do feel quite effective. The threat comes not only from under the surface these days, but as always from the skies, and especially at Tier 8, there is a high concentration of carriers active. Brandenburg gets 72 30mm AA guns in 18 quadruple gun turrets, and the secondary battery 105mm guns also double up as AA, 20 in total in 10 twin-mounted turrets. All combined, they pump out a continuous average damage of 351, although the majority of this damage is short-range focused, with 5.2 kilometers being the max firing range. Brandenburg does, however, fire 8 flak explosions per salvo, with a max damage of 1400, and personally I do like reinforcing this by using the fighter consumable, as I do consider the spotting aircraft to be less than optimal. Being able to get the Brandenburg to perform optimally requires you to close the distance under the right circumstances, and I must admit Brandenburg does come with decent base speed of 32.5 knots, which can be boosted to 34.1 knots when mounting the Sierra Mike signal flag, which I highly advise doing. The turning circle radius of 820 meters doesn't hurt too much, and with this build a rudder shift time of 15.7 seconds. But this is incorporating Damage Control Mod 2 in slot 4 instead of steering gears. The reason for doing so is not running fire prevention as a captain skill. Should you choose to run with the steering gears mod, you can reduce the rudder shift time to 12.6 seconds. And finally, stats wise, we come to the Brandenburg's concealment rating of 51, with a full stealth build using both upgrade and captain skill, which equates to a detection range by enemy surface ships of 12.7 kilometers, and by periscope depth for subs and enemy aircraft both at 9.1 kilometers. This relatively good concealment and high speed means the second you are detected, you are only 1.2 kilometers away from being in secondary range, allowing you to engage targets without sacrificing huge amounts of hit points before getting your secondaries to start working. It might seem like a coincidence, but with the recent release of the Rochester, which does feel like a superior anchorage, now comes the release of the Brandenburg, which also feels like a superior Odin. I do wonder, is this a trend we are going to see more of in the future? What I felt held the Odin back from being an exceptional brawler was the low hit points and lack of armour, both of which Brandenburg seems to have addressed. Whether or not you are interested in the Brandenburg or not, I hope this video gives you an accurate idea of what the ship is capable of, and when you see one bearing down on you in battle in the near future, you know what to expect. Personally, I've been having a ton of fun with the German secondary battleships recently, and the Brandenburg is no exception. Combined with the Gunther Lütjen's captain, fun is guaranteed. If you'd like to see some live Brandenburg gameplay, feel free to come on over and check out my Twitch channel. I'm on regularly during the week, or if you simply have any questions or want to hang out for some chilled out action. You can see the link here on screen and in the video description below. I look forward to seeing you all. like to thank you once again all for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more. Take a moment to check out some of my most recent videos and leave a comment below. And until the next time, keep sailing it like you stole it.